Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, and welcome to the Life West Leadership Line. I'm so excited to bring you our guest today. He's one of the icons in our profession. He's been doing amazing things for quite a number of years, actually over 70 years, and just doing amazing things in chiropractic. And I just want to jump into it. I want to introduce you to Jack Donovan, Dr. Jack Donovan. Jack, welcome to the Life West Leadership Line.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
It's good morning. It's great to have you. I'll just give you a little bit of history about Dr. Jack. He's a 1950 graduate of Palmer College. That puts him at like 71 years. He's still practicing on a limited basis, but he's still seeing patients. He's got 23 chiropractors in his family. In fact, he just graduated a chiropractor from Parker. He's been involved in chiropractic on many different levels. He's in he's a member of the Palmer Academy. He's been on the board of Parker College for many, many years, on and off during term limits. They keep bringing him back because I guess he's got so much to offer, which is really huge, you know, Jack. And I know that you've got someone, because the only reason to have someone on the board is to be able to see their high level thinking, and he is that person. His father was a chiropractor. He graduated in 1925, 26. Dr. H.B. Donovan, or Dr. Harry Donovan. And he's just got this lineage in chiropractic that's just amazing. And the thing that I'm most grateful for also is that Dr. Donovan participated on our virtual 125th birthday anniversary that Life West did, and where we had chiropractors from all over the world join us, literally all over the world, for a live virtual birthday party that we did. And Dr. Jack was one of our speakers. So I'm thrilled to have you, Dr. Jack, to be with us today. It's just great. And we're going to jump into it right now. Okay.
Sure.
Here we go. And just for our audience to know this, you know, Dr. Jack goes way back. We were discussing what we wanted to talk about, and he has learned and met and been with some of the masters that we know about, right? So we're just going to go through some of these people and have Dr. Jack give us, just share with us the history, not so much the history, but, you know, what they were like during their time and how they did, and any stories that he has, so we can actually pick his brain and be able to, you know, have it memorialized about some of these people like BJ Palmer and Clay Thompson and Bill Harris and this stuff. So tell us, Dr. Jack, you know, BJ Palmer, let's start with that. You know, you started in you started school, what, in 48 maybe?
BJ came along, and that's when they used to have lyceums. Our homecoming was in Lyceum. It was in a big tent in August in Davenport, Iowa. And everybody wore a shirt and a tie. It was, and there would be thousands of us there, and BJ would talk, and you listened, and BJ would give the word for the next year. This is what we're going to do. I remember the last time I heard him talk in the tent is when he announced that Palmer was going to go for 4 years. They were going to go from 18 months to 4 years, which was remarkable. It was time to happen, and it was well accepted by all the guys. But I had the privilege of introducing BJ one time at a meeting, a state chiropractic meeting, and BJ locked the doors. Nobody came in or left while he was speaking, and had the doors monitored. And he pulled out his watch. I was introducing him, and he pulled out his watch. And he said, "That's enough," right in my introduction. And of course, you accepted that from BJ. You just didn't want to waste any of his time. He was a patriarch. There was no question about his ability to persevere, his ability to mesmerize, his ability to think. If you just read some of his, some of the green books are just beyond how a man could think that much, do that much, and be that creative, and how he could expand his consciousness to. We've had some great people in chiropractic. I mean, some wonderful, miraculous men and women that have done these things ahead of us, and we stand on their shoulders.
Yeah. Well, Jack, you know something, with BJ, when you talk about going from 18 months to 4 years, like it used to be 9 months, you know, with Dee, and then it went to 18 months. I thought it went to 2.5 years and grew like that. But thank you for the historical context around that. It went from 18 months to 4 years. That's a huge jump.
To 36 months. To 36 months.
36.
Which was, yeah.
I mean, that's just, which is really 4 years of academics, right? Because an academic year isn't from January or September to August, right? It's just incredible. And he really uplifted our profession, right? I mean, he leveled us up it's just incredible.
So in so many ways, I graduated from Palmer, never adjusted anything but an atlas. That was all. We didn't adjust anything in atlas but an atlas. The first day I was in practice, I saw 50-some people full spine.
First day?
First day. I went to work for this guy. It was my father. And my father had a gallbladder attack. And I said, well, we'll call the secretary and say, let's cancel these appointments. He said, you're here. Go.
Talk about being thrown into the fire, right?
Best thing that ever happened to me. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Absolutely.
Never had any fear after that. I think he planned that gallbladder attack. Yeah.
Do you know, it's incredible because it's really interesting because this is what I heard about BJ. When I talk to people like yourself who knew BJ, were taught by BJ, the two things of developing a chiropractor are confidence and competence.
Yes.
And, the ones who we usually think they're very competent, right, might not be, but their confidence might be high or it might be low. And usually we find the ones who have less confidence have more competence. They just don't know it. And getting those to equal out, right? And nothing like being thrown in the fire like you were, right?
Oh, yeah. But BJ said if you adjust it, it'll work. And by God, I believed him. He was God at the time in my mind. Galen Price was the one. He was my philosophy teacher at Palmer. He's the one that really locked me in. I was there kind of kicking and screaming, following this tradition in chiropractic. And in the Galen Price philosophy classes in 6 weeks' time, not only could I have taught philosophy, but you couldn't have dragged me out of there with a team of horses. I knew that I had a right. I knew that I was born, but then I found out why I was born. I was born to be a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Just diverting a little bit, but that's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Well, no, but answer me this, because I think that our viewers need to know this. When you went through philosophy class, right, at Palmer College, back in the late 40s, right?
Yeah.
What were they teaching?
Every day, safety pin cycle. I'm talking, sure you do.
Yeah.
Pin cycle.
Yeah.
Safety pin cycles, above, down, inside out.
Yeah. Yeah, 33 principles, were those
33 principles, 33 principles. But the major ones just stuck. It was faith, confidence, and belief in your product, services, and ideas. And the safety pin cycle. Safety pin cycle is what really geared me to understand chiropractic.
Yeah.
At least as understand as well as I can understand chiropractic.
Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing, Jack, because I think in some schools, they might teach the safety pin cycle for, an hour, right?
Ooh.
But you learned the safety pin cycle, or they might not even teach it in some schools. How much time did you spend on the safety pin cycle?
Every day. Every day. We had philosophy class every day.
Yeah.
Every day. We practiced our toggle recoil, and we listened to philosophy classes.
How about Mabel?
Mabel was my father and mother were great friends of Mabel, and my dad just thought she was the most charming lady in the world. And he was kind of devastated when Mabel died. I remember he went to the funeral. My folks went to the funeral, and Mabel was how she could understand and deal with BJ and deal with the ways the students loved her. She was the glue that helped the college stick together.
Yeah,
she was, but then she just accepted BJ. She accepted, don't put a net on a butterfly. Just let him grow, and I'll pick up the pieces type of thing. And she's very gracious lady, very gracious lady.
Well, they say behind every great person is a greater person sometimes, and like you said, she was the mother of Palmer College, right? And
right.
And people, but she was her anatomy mind was just incredible.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So you get into the Hinders and her and see, Bill Harris was connected with the Helen Hinders, and with all that was tied together. And they were more. Herb Hinder was get up there, and because he was an MD, you gave him more respect, and you listened harder, and you paid more attention. But he was a charming man, and he was so kind. Yeah. As a teacher.
Listen, I have a tape of Herb Hender.
You do.
Yeah, it's a cassette tape of Herb Hender, and the title of the tape is "Changed Thinking Changes Everything."
Yeah.
And it was a lecture that he gave, and it is incredible, talking about the psychology of the mind and how, what we think about, we bring about. And it was, I think he gave it at Lyceum one year, and people have to know that Herb Hender was he was one of the lieutenants, right, under BJ, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. He carried himself with such dignity and such decorum. I mean, in Herb Hender's class, you arrived early and stayed late.
Yeah.
And these are all veterans, guys. Everybody was just so much respect.
Yeah. Yeah. How about, did you, and I'm just going to spitball right now. Did you know, again, who was a very close friend of mine, Herbert Ross Reaver?
I didn't know him. I know all about him. I know the history of him. I knew he was a friend of my brother, but I only heard about him and only could cherish his and respect the history of what he did. And then his son was a writer to that, and I got to read. I read some of those readings. Some of those were by chiropractic sandwiches.
Yeah, Chappie graduated in 1956. And he moved, and he graduated in the same realm as Dr. Sid Williams, Dr. Nell Williams, Dr. Dee Dee Umber, Dr. Reggie Gold. All these people came out of this 56 year, and he was in Marietta, Georgia. Became friends with me. I don't know how we even met, but we became friends. Yeah. And when I left college. Yeah. When I left Life College in '81, going back to Detroit to see my family before I went off to Washington State to do an associateship, he said to me, "Ron, would you stop up in Cincinnati and see my dad?" And I said, "Absolutely." I didn't know who his dad was. I knew a little bit. Stopped off, had dinner with him and Millie, and we became just like glue, communicating every month, writing letters. There was no internet back there, and we became so close. We brought him out to Orange County in the 80s or early 90s, right? Flew him and Millie out, had 1,000 chiropractors and students in this one ballroom, and he just talked about the history and what it was like. Amazing man. Talk to me. You mentioned some other names. You mentioned, and we're not going to go in order here of lineage or where they came from.
I knew Sid. I knew Sid pretty well too.
Yeah, Dr. Sid. Yeah. And what an amazing man, right? I mean that.
Oh. Amazing.
I think all of those people, I think that Dr. Jim Parker and Dr. Williams and Dr. Williams and I felt he's kind of like my father in chiropractic, so to speak.
Sure.
Right? I think they all took some BJ with them.
Oh, they did. We're all a copycat of the good stuff that we see in our lifetime, and how we feel about it, how we're energized by it. And that's my reason for chiropractic sandwich all the time, is you get this energy, thoughts of things, and they're real, and it's there for you, because these guys were so good. Patients would come see my father, and they would start to heal in the parking lot.
Yeah. Before they walked in, right?
Before they walked in the door. It was an amazing thing. And I was in practice a long time before a patient ever said that to me. I felt better as soon as I parked my car.
Yeah.
And suddenly I understood what that was all about. I had right intent at that time. But
they owned it, right? They owned the principle. They owned what they did. Yeah.
Absolutely right intent.
Yep.
Service of self. They spent hours and hours and hours trying to help us. Jim Parker alone saved the chiropractic profession in the 50s. Chiropractic was flat on its back. And I can remember, oh gosh, he had classes, and I remember there was a friend of mine. I had a decent practice, and a friend of mine was struggling a little bit, and he said, let's go to Parker. It was up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, December of 1954. Colder than shit, 25 below zero. We took a train up there to Chicago and then on up to Green Bay, and I listened to Jim and listened. His classes started early in the morning and late at night. We'd go 3 days. We'd eat that meat and potatoes book. We read through that. We read it. And on Sunday, he had a little dinner, and he gave us a circle marble and a certificate of attending and a brown bag. I went to my room in the hotel and I cried for 3 solid hours. I could not. I suddenly realized I was cleansed of negativity. I was absolutely cleansed of negativity. I came home and my practice tripled, and I didn't do a thing different.
Yeah, you did do a thing different. He gave you that adjustment.
Absolutely.
Above Atlas, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and he did that for the chiropractic profession.
Yes.
He was, and I got to sit with Jim so many times during the process of starting college and building the college and listening to him, and how those guys suffered, how they suffered, how BJ suffered, how those teachers suffered, and they couldn't get somebody to follow what they knew was right, and the agony that they had, and how they extended themselves. Yeah. They were just marvelous people.
Yeah. And, and a lot of people don't know that Dr. Sid Williams, because of course he started Dynamic Essentials, I believe in the 60s, but he was a speaker. He was one of the keynote speakers at Parker for years. Absolutely.
All those guys that broke away from Parker did their own thing, like so many oh God, I know Danny Drubin. Do you know Danny Drubin? But all those fellows were,
there was a lot that went there, and so you talk about Jim Parker, but
and I don't mean to interrupt you, but Jim, we'd say to Jim, you got to quit this. These guys, it's a leak in our bucket for the seminars. No, I want them out there. I want to give it away. He said, don't you understand my philosophy? I want to give it away.
Reach more people. Get more people, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly it. It's exactly it. Talk to us about Bill Harris, because, a lot of people don't know Bill. And, and if they do know Bill, they might only know, Bill Harris, is he the guy with the red beret? And Bill he's still doing. He is still, even as he's not on the physical plane, he is still doing amazing things for the chiropractic profession. Talk about Bill.
Bill Harris. Well, I had known Bill from a distance, like I knew the red hair. And one day I got a phone call. And he said, this is Bill Harris. And I said, you got to be kidding. No, this is Bill Harris. And he said, I want to come out and spend a week with you and get some adjustments. And I said, I'm so flattered, I can't hardly talk to you. I don't believe this is you. And I said, is this really you? And he said, yeah. He said, my plane will arrive in Omaha and so on. So I went out and met him. And here he came off the plane with that red hat on. I was awestruck. I just was awestruck. What do you want me to do for you? But he was a great teacher. He'd tell me about his philanthropic effects, and he'd tell me about having people do some things and do things with their money. And he shared so many things with me, so many things. And how do I want to say this? He wasn't grandiose at all. He was so kind, he'd wait for you to speak. He'd wait for you to listen to what you had to say. And he'd never offer you advice unless you asked for it. I can remember seeing that about him. You'd say, well, Bill, how do I handle this? And he'd tell you. But otherwise, he wouldn't say, you're making a big mistake here, Jack. You shouldn't do it this way. No, he was. And why he landed on me was one of the blessings of my lifetime. And we did that for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and he came. And he came from. He was in the South, right?
Yeah.
Where was he?
Alpharetta or some town in right near Savannah, right near Atlanta.
Right near Alpharetta, Georgia. Yeah, and he'd fly he'd fly all the way to your house or to your office.
He'd fly to Omaha.
Yeah.
Which is 100 miles away, and I'd go get him and take him to the airport, take him back to the airport
in the winter.
In the winter, yeah.
And tell the audience, he'd get checked how many times a day would he get checked when he come up to see you?
3 times a day.
3 times a day. And
we had him stay in our home, which was another blessing. And that was he was treated my wife like she was the queen of Egypt. He was just a gentleman all the way through. Not one thing about him was not gentlemanly. Not one thing. And he was always teaching and sharing and giving. And at those times we got really connected because Reichman got let go at Palmer. We were both really deeply involved with Palmer. I was involved with the President's Club and got the President's Club up to, 100, maybe 200 members. And we were deeply involved. And in fact, we had a Parker seminar at Las Vegas, and the Palmer had a reunion there, like they do with their, and all the board trustees were there. And my God, they treated Dr. Reichman like, couldn't have treated him any better. They called and fired him. Oh. Or let him go, or there was a conflict. I never did get the total details of that, but that really hurt Bill Harris. He felt so bad that they did that because he was touting, he was really, and he'd already made the commitment for $5 or $7 million for that research center. Yeah, because I was privileged to go speak at the inauguration of that. Senator Harkin and myself, some man you mentioned earlier, spoke at the end of that. But he came back at that, and he didn't relinquish on his funding. He made sure they got all their money.
Yeah, the beautiful thing I hear about Bill Harris is that even if he was upset about something, he never held a grudge. And he always kept, this is what I hear about him, he always kept the bigger picture.
Always.
And I met Bill Harris, and I met him in the 80s and early 80s. And you're right, he was a gentleman. And what our audience might not know about Bill Harris is that and I don't know, I would bet $99 out of 100, he's given the most amount of money and is now his foundation to chiropractic and chiropractic colleges than anybody else, whether it was him or whether his foundation afterwards, right?
That's for a fact. I know that for I know what he did while he was living, and his secretary. I've corresponded with his secretary since that time, and I know what he's done at length for Life College, and other colleges too. It was just. And he planned this. He planned, this is where it's going to go, and this is where it's going to be, and that's how it's going to be. And he saw it happening. He didn't want it to happen. He saw it happening. This is what it's going to be.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'll tell you this. He just gave the Harris Foundation just awarded my college, Life West, a $500,000 matching grant for our learning commons. Right? We're transforming our library into a learning commons with high technology and soft seating everywhere, almost like going into a Barnes & Noble or a Starbucks. Incredible stuff. Incredible man. And his legacy continues to this day. And that's the beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. I want to play. Go on.
Yeah. No.
I want to play some word association games with you now, okay?
Okay.
Because I know you know a ton of people, and I wrote down some names here. So just talk about, tell our viewers just some a few stories, whatever, and then we'll keep going down the list. So, whatever quickly comes to your mind. Let's talk about Klay Thompson, because I know you know Klay Thompson. What comes to your mind?
Klay Thompson was a genius. He was a mechanical engineer, and he would develop. I bought his first drop chest piece for a chiropractor for the old Zenith high-low table, and he came out and installed it on my table on a Sunday. He did it, but he had a beautiful office in Davenport, and I talked to some of his interns that he had that worked with him, and they were so impressed with how diligent he was and how hard he worked at it. I bought his chair where it had a mechanical thing against the wall, and you sat in the chair and you jacked it up and you adjusted them sideways like this. Jesus.
Never had to lay him down, right?
Just him sideways. But he was not a very good teacher, but he was very good at demonstrating, hands-on demonstrating, show you what to do and how to do it. Yeah. And his classes, played a lot of people follow the Thompson procedure for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was an artist and he was a master, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He was special, just a special guy.
All right. Next name. John Grossick.
Oh, John Grossick. I flew to Ann Arbor for 3 years on weekends to learn how to do Grossick. And I failed. I absolutely could not meet his expectations. Finally, he patted me on the back someday and said, Jack, I don't think you can bend over that far. I don't know what But I just couldn't do it. The analysis was, I spent so much time on film analysis. I just missed this, over and so on. And I didn't believe it, number one. And I was trying to get myself so it would work, so then I'd believe it while I had it backwards. But those people that practice it well get spectacular results.
Phenomenal results. And we know John Grossick learned from BJ, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And then, and then this is such a beautiful thing. How then John Grossick, changed and found or upgraded what he saw as the brilliant mind that he was. Incredible. And Grossick is still still many Grossick practitioners out there.
Phenomenal. How he addressed atlas vertebra, and that was what brought my attention to it. I said, well, BJ said it's good. I better find out how to do it as well as I can. But I failed in that. I could never satisfy myself.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you something. I don't know if you failed or not, but sometimes you take an all-pro quarterback, like the best of the best, right? And then you put them into a wide receiver position. They're athletic, but that might not be the right thing for them, But they're still an all-pro and still the best of the best, and I think that's you. Next name, and we're going to switch now from. Okay. The very, Thompson, who was a mechanical engineer and had his technique, refined, and Grossick and BJ Palmer, of course, with toggle recoil that you learned. Let's switch it now to a more, I don't know you want to call it tonal, but a different analysis type technique. Let's talk about Richard Van Romp.
Oh, I'm delighted to talk about Richard.
For the people who don't know Van Romp, Van Romp was the first guy, first DC. I mean, he was reading the feet. The body was telling him what to do. And amazing little thumb technique. I would say it might have been one of the first non-force techniques, actually. I don't know.
He was. He was.
Talk about it. Talk about Richard Van Romp, because a lot of people didn't get to experience.
I was involved with a local chamber of commerce, and we're playing. Did you ever hear of donkey basketball?
No.
It's the thing you do in small towns in Iowa. You get donkeys and you sit on their back and you play basketball. Well, it's just a thing. So, but my donkey didn't like me very well. Somebody bucked me off and I let on my head and shoulder, but I couldn't walk. My knee hurt so bad. I thought, well, I'll get over that. And finally, I went to my brother. I went to my dad. I went to several guys, and they couldn't fix my knee. But I heard about Van Romp was going to be in Dallas, Texas in January. And I heard about his work, and I thought, this is a great place to go in January when you're in Iowa. So I walked in, and I'm there early, and there's this little guy, little bald-headed guy, talks out of the corners of his mouth. He's from New York, and I'm saying to myself, you ain't going to like this guy. You're absolutely not going to like this guy. So I introduced myself, and he said, as I walked up, he said, boy, Dr. Donovan, you got a back problem. I said, no, I don't, but I got a hell of a knee problem. He said, come on up here. I walked up, covered up in the station, went down, and he did this with the feet, and did this with the feet, and finally with this little thrust business, he said, I'll see you tomorrow. In the back of my mind, you'll never see me again. That check is going to be torn up, and I'm out of here. But I walked off that stage. Then I got out and I walked down 3 or 4 flights of stairs. My knee was damn near 90% better. I turned around and I got there early and I stayed late for a solid week. And I was just so impressed with what he was doing. And I appreciated the fact that he was talking about it. He was asking for yeses and nos, so forth. And there was a whole different innate, got me more involved with innate. Got me involved. And so I come back home, and I was a constant practitioner, a hard force adjuster, had all Thompson tables in the office, and I changed everything. So it
started doing Van Romp.
100% Van Romp. I got in heat, and I was going for it. That was my patients either thought I was wonderful or crazy. So we started to get a bunch of young chiropractors in Cairo. So we got them started because I was bound and determined I was going to change how I was doing things. And so that helped. It was everything's a lesson. Everything in life is a lesson. Everything.
He was an incredible mind, and I've talked to many people. One of my good friends, Dr. Mike Mclean and Pat McLean, they Van Rump practitioners, when they're in Virginia and Hawaii and places. And I never understood where Van Rump developed developed this technique.
He didn't either.
And by the way, it's called, we'll just tell the audience, DNFT. Direct non-force technique is
dynamic non-force technique.
Or dynamic,
yeah.
Where did he learn it from? Did it just come to him? Did he ever say?
He practice repeated things. I'd ask him things. How do you know that, Van? He'd say, don't ask. Yeah. Or, I'm tired of your questions, Jack.
Yeah. We want to know what innately he learned, right?
And every chiropractic technique bleeds off the other. Now, Arlen Four got a whale of a start from Van Rump, big start from Van Rump, in the leg check business and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So.
And they're all combined. There's always, they're all cousins. There's always something that goes in. You mentioned the name. Clarence Gossett. Yeah. Good.
I had a great experience at Clarence Gossett. We were at the Lyceum in Davenport, and this gentleman said to me, he said, would you adjust my axis? And I said, sure, we'll find a adjusting table. No, he said, we'll just sit on this bench. I don't know anything about sitting on a bench and adjusting anybody's. And he said, let me lean back and you just thrust. And I thrust, and he said, you're pretty good. And he said, here's my card. And it was Clarence Gossett.
Oh, my. You didn't even know who it was.
No, I didn't know who it was. So he said, come visit me. So I remember this was in 1963. And so I drove up there on a weekend. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks later, drove up there on a weekend, got there on a Friday night, just as his office was closing, and went in on a Saturday morning. And he had an office like semicircular, so that cash register here, and he had these chairs sitting around like in a circle. And then you picked the number, and before you went in, you paid the gal $5. And then you went back and he adjusted. He was a gentle giant. He had those big hands, and he could do an L3 on a side posture with just amazing generosity, amazing gentleness. Could just boom. He was fantastic. And he allowed me to come up there 2 or 3 different times, and then I took his work on the road. We had him out. Got to know him. Didn't get to know him real well, but got to be in his presence. And like Van Rump, I got to know real well, and Thompson I got to know real well. Gossett maybe tolerated him, but he watched him work, and he was
amazing.
He was just above and beyond.
And now you know why they fly all over the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people build a clinic? Right, in no matter whether it's Mount Horeb or whether it's wherever else, and they have a landing strip there, right? I mean, come on, the vision that he had was far beyond, just like Bill Harris, right? Far beyond,
absolutely,
what we can conceive,
Yeah. It was. They had a quietness about them that made you respect their aura. You didn't ever raise your voice around them. There was a quietness. You knew that you should be a sponge when they're in their presence. Yeah. They were great. They were wonderful. And these guys were chiropractors, attracting all this wonderful attention. These are the things that made legislative change. These things. Now we've got people in VA hospitals, which you should have had years ago, but it's happening. You're right.
We should be everywhere.
Absolutely.
Delivering chiropractic care. The Spears, right? From the Spears Hospital in Denver, right? I mean, BJ's vision was clearing out the hospitals and clearing out the insane asylums and and all this stuff, and that was the vision. It was about getting their nervous systems, getting them flowing from above down, inside out, so that there was something aberrant happening neurologically, whether it was above atlas or below. But when you connected that body and you connected that innate, it was just like boom, changes happen. But they knew it, Jack, right? They knew it. And like you said, that conviction of the patient then coming in, because the patient knew it. They got in your parking lot and they go, Doc, I felt it when I arrived here.
Yeah. I lived with Lyle Sherman when I was a student at Palmer, and I got the mumps. And I remember him taking me in his office and he adjusted my atlas, and I went back to school the next day. I just thought of that right now. We're talking here. He was and his wife. That was a wonderful family. He was so kind, such a good guy,
Yeah.
such a gentleman,
and a master, right? I mean,
oh my God,
incredible. And you know, for the lay person to hear that, oh, I got the mumps, I went and got adjusted, and no more mumps, right? Went to school the next day. The Spanish flu, right? You know, back in 1918, you know, all the data around that. It might not have been research that was done with an IRB and everything else around that, but anecdotally, we knew that people were getting well, and that what was happening, you know, and you know, we just got to get that message back out again today and let them, you know. I have a thing at the bottom of my table. I put TWA. Just TWA, and it's teach while adjusting. Don't talk about anything else. Even use the old Merrick system. You go back. L4 goes here, D12 goes here, this goes here, this happens, this what happens. And when these nerves are stressed, your body's stressed. And it just constantly talking chiropractic, because that's the only time in their life they're going to be in that space where they really get indoctrinated or where they can learn. I'm preaching to the gospel of the choir when I talk to you about these things, but our audience wants to hear that. And you know, I remember Herbert Ross Weaver saying on the stage with 1,000 people, he said, you know, if I did my job right, they'd come and see me. If I did my job right, they'd come back. They'd come back. And really what I heard him saying in my head was, if I educated them right and told them you know, what I needed to tell them, they'd come back. And if they came back, they'd get results. You know, you know, that kind of thing. It was just incredible. And Jack, I think that we've got to find a way to take this, bottle what you have, bottle the essence of yourself and your father and your brothers and and the 23 in your family, and bottle the essence of BJ, and bottle the essence of Bill Harris and Thompson and Gonstead and Van Romp and and all the other people, right? Yeah, and be able to indoctrinate that into people, you know, get that into them so that you know, our science is further along now, which is wonderful. Teach that. And what we're seeing with the brain and stuff, I mean, I don't know what BJ and these guys would be doing right now if that was happening, you know, but we've got to be able to get that into our students and into our practitioners so that they literally have that. Walk into a room with a bunch of, you know, because back in the day, you walk in with a bunch of medical doctors, they're like, oh, there's the chiropractor, right? You know, oh, there's, he thinks he's a doctor kind of thing, right? You know, they'd laugh, you know, that kind of thing. But they have no idea what we knew, you know, and it's just incredible.
The essence has changed dramatically in my lifetime. Because I can remember, you know, my father wasn't allowed to be in the Rotary Club or the Lions Club, couldn't join the Country Club. I mean, he was just actually blackballed because he was a chiropractor. Yeah. And that carried on. That was tough on family. Yeah. Because, you know, we didn't have his big idea, and we were learning this thing. And I know it was difficult for me as a son of a chiropractor. That then I went off. I had my 2 years at the university, and my dad said, you're going to have to do a little chiropractic study here because you haven't learned much from me, and would go to Palmer so I said, yes. I didn't, and reluctantly I went to Palmer. Got into Galen Price's classes and began to learn what the big idea was all about, and it was fabulous. My dad gave me the best gift he could ever give anybody, anytime. You know, we used to, there's a story the guy told me. He said, Donovan, if you get a deer on the road, you'd get out and wonder if that was a right atlas or left atlas.
I love it. But you know something, I got to tell you something. You're a chiro kid. So you grew up in the philosophy because it was incorporated in your home, you know? Yeah. And so I think when you know, it makes sense because here you are going to school, not necessarily knowing the safety pin cycle per se. Your dad didn't teach you that at the table, but you knew how you grew up. You didn't have drugs. You did this. You knew the power of the adjustment. You watched people come in the office, your dad's office, and leave. You know, and I think that a lot of our viewers don't know they see chiro kids in school. I got 3 daughters. My wife's a chiropractor. We have 3 daughters. They're chiropractors. And, when they were in school, people come up to them after the first day going, "Oh, your parents are chiropractors. Can you adjust me?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I get that some students would know that, but they don't know that, people think that osmotically they are chiropractors. Now they're born, they understand it from being raised, right? And it's just normal to them. But when you were growing up and going to school, they were like, "Oh yeah, well, Donovan, he would never do this, and Donovan this," right? And that kind of stuff, right? And you weren't one of them on some level,
I was the only Catholic on the high school football team, and of course I was the only a Catholic in my high school class, and so I had a lot of be kind of militant about that, and being militant about a chiropractor. But I can remember going on some football team on Friday night, and they'd feed them steaks after the game. And I'd eat fish, and I hated fish. Oh, I hated fish. But I ate that fish with diligence. Oh, that's the best fish I ever had in my lifetime. I don't know what made me think of that right now. But
I love it. You know what? Because I believe this. I believe sometimes chiropractors we're born to be a maverick or a little bit different, and when I say a maverick, I'm saying a very kind, gentle, but we see things differently. We operate differently. And I believe that when we're led, to chiropractic, because I got a hard time thinking that we choose it. I think chiropractic chooses us on some level, on a ethereal level, it chooses us. And I think it chooses the ones who can do that. Because there might be a lot of people who would quit the football team because they couldn't eat the steak with the other people, and would quit, chiropractic because they're not similar to other people. And I think that's just me personally. But I appreciate you, Jack. I know we're winding down right now, but I appreciate you for all that you've done. The millions are, not millions, but the thousands, even maybe hundreds of thousands of people that you've inspired as patients, as chiropractors, as chiropractic family, everyone that we can think of that you've touched in 70 years, and then the lineage of your family touching. I only pray that my family will be like that, with my grandkids and their kids and moving on. And, you've done something right, and your dad did something right, and your mom did something right.
It's such a privilege to be a chiropractor. I mean, it's just such a privilege. Once you get the big idea of it, you think, my God, I can do this with my hands. I can help you. It's just
every day. We haven't worked a day in our life. Because
never
every day. Well, Jack, I appreciate you being with us. At the Life West Leadership Line for the last minutes that we've had with each other. You are truly a gentleman and a scholar, and I just want to leave it to you right now. Is there any last final thoughts you want to share with our audience?
Just service above self. Just do it. If you get the patient off the table, you feel like there's something else you might do, put them back on the table. Get that. Everybody that enters your space has to leave your space feeling better about themselves and about their history. Everybody has to leave better, and that's all your associations. That's your receptors. That's your barber. That's your gas where you get your gas. That's all those things. Just elevate everybody's consciousness just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. Give away what you want.
Yeah. And if we keep doing that and they keep coming in, their consciousness keeps elevating.
That's right.
It's just what it is. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Donovan. Thank you for the 71 years of service you've done in this profession, and for being a chiro kid who went through the trials and tribulations that people probably wouldn't even know, and for being with it and doing all you've done for our profession. And I want to thank our listeners. Thank you for staying with us and for listening to our Life West Leadership Line and being with us all these months. We will continue to deliver high quality people so you can learn more and feel more in the science and the philosophy and the art of chiropractic. And just remember to keep loving the people around you, live your life from above down, inside out. Never forget the power that you have in your hands, your heart, and your head, and that chiropractic, when delivered, in that method, will truly, truly change the world. So thank you so much, and I'll see you at our next Leadership Line. And until then, love the people that you're with, keep hugging those people that you're with, and never stop spreading chiropractic and elevating, as Dr. Jack said, the consciousness of everybody who's around you. Until the next time, be well.